I'm a product of women in STEM initiatives. I went to an all-girls engineering camp before I went to high school from the University of Houston.
And how difficult it was to make that decision, especially when you were starting up your petrochemical journey.
And I have this belief that if you really want something, somehow you're going to get it.
You're a YouTuber, you're a podcaster, you're also very active in social media. How it's all helping you in this professional journey?
And I started the YouTube channel that way by promoting technical content. I got some feedback saying that I'm the queen of self-promotion.
Anything for someone who's trying to make it big in this industry?
I treated my job like it was breathing. Once my job was cut, I felt like I was out of air. And I don't ever want to see life that way again, because there is more to life than your job.
You take setbacks as opportunity. You should not go in the victim mode. This is the Oil and Gas Breaking By show, where we are going to invite industry leaders to talk about their journeys and also technologies of tomorrow, in an effort to break some of the biases that might have formed around this energy industry. Hello everyone, I hope you are happy and healthy. I'm Anand Jha, and you are listening to the Oil and Gas Breaking By show. This is the series on the journeys of leaders who have made it big in this energy industry while breaking some of the biases around them. And today I'm very happy because I will be joined by one of the superstars in oil and gas industry, Yogashri Pradhan. She's a lead production engineer at Chevron, and she's also a YouTuber, podcaster, and CrossFit trainer. In her decade-long career, she has broken many of the biases by turning setbacks into opportunities with proper planning and ambition to rise above the norm. So listen to her interesting story. Welcome, Yogashri.
Thank you for having me.
I saw you on LinkedIn, and I started to see what value you are bringing in this industry. And I'm happy to see somebody taking this lead, not just on the professional side, but also personal side, to spread positivity about this industry. So I'm very happy to see you growing there. As I said before we start recording this session, we were talking about your personal life, and I was really impressed like how you have done. So it would be good for our listeners to understand if you can walk us through your professional and personal journey, which helped you to reach wherever you are today.
Absolutely. As far as personal journey goes, I'll go farther back than what we discussed in our recording. I'm a product of women in STEM initiatives. I went to an all-girls engineering camp before I went to high school from the University of Houston, and that's where I got introduced to petroleum engineering. They gave us a binder, and they showed us all different types of engineering, and what attracted me the most was petroleum engineering, because how dynamic the industry is, and how you're able to uplift people's quality of life and provide low-cost energy around the world. That was something that was very fulfilling to me. And when I started looking at colleges my junior year of high school, I remember petroleum engineering from all-girls engineering camp that I went to. That's when I learned that petroleum engineering was offered as a major Texas schools. So I went to get my petroleum engineering degree from the University of Texas, and in 2015, I got my bachelor's of petroleum engineering at the time. I had a couple of internships with Devon Energy, so they offered me a full-time offer in 2015, and I started working for Devon out in Midland as a worksite supervisor. So I had a lot of field production engineering experience as my first role. But if you also hear that I graduated from 2015, 2016 was a pretty difficult time for the oil and gas industry.
And I think everybody knows who's part of this industry. Before 2015, it was a very booming market, and suddenly everything changed in 2015. So yeah, I'm curious to hear about your experience during that time.
Absolutely. There were lots of rumors about what companies were going to do, and there were lots of news articles about the cuts that companies were going to do. So that raised some alarm bells for me to start reaching out to my network, polishing my resume before I got the notification that I had to be looking for different opportunities before I got laid off. So because I got a head start on my networking, polishing my resume, talking to different kinds of people, talking to my network on who can help me, That's how within a week of after being laid off, I got an opportunity to work for University Lands. It was a consulting arm for University Lands, a technical consulting arm. So that was called Texas Oil and Gas Institute. I worked as a production engineer there in the office, and my job was to look at 280 operators worth of production data that is supporting university lands out in Midland and Delaware basins, and then provide recommendations in return on how to optimize production and increase the revenues on university lands. So that was a very interesting opportunity where I learned a lot about artificial lift optimization. I was able to own my skills in production and reservoir engineering, and also own some of my leadership skills. I had the opportunity to run an internship program of 16 graduate interns from UT and Texas A&M University. So I created the intern program and I mentored all of them in their initial internships. And all of them got job placements after that, or future internship placements after
Interesting.
that. Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. So, like you also grew in your career, but you also helped young engineers who are looking to enter in this industry. So, very interesting. Yeah. Continue.
for sure. Well, there in 2018, that's when there were some budget cuts that happened in university lands, and the consulting arm got dissolved. So that also prompted me to look for another opportunity. And within a month after that notification, I got a job with Endeavor Energy Resources in Midland. So I moved back to Midland in 2018. And that's when oil prices started going up a little bit. So the oil price or the industry was at a healthier state at the time. And I worked as a reservoir engineer there. As a reservoir engineer, I did a lot of asset development, project management, so unconventional field planning, and then slowly transitioned to more of a data analytics, data science role where I did more technical studies, where there was rate transient analysis, pressure transient analysis, but then there was also some multilinear regressions, multivariate modeling that I was also doing to provide solutions for the asset engineers on their projects and what were some long-term solutions one can do for their development. I also did a lot of inventory work working as a reservoir engineer, so I wore a lot of hats at the time. Around that time when I hit my fourth year mark at Endeavor, I realized that I had 7 years of Midland Basin experience, but I had very little Delaware Basin experience. So that's when I started working for Coterra Energy in Delaware Basin. This was also in Midland, Texas as well. So I started working for Coterra in focusing on the Delaware Basin. And I really enjoyed my asset development experience at that company. So it was more of a project management role. It was more asset development combined with a technical analysis as well. I was wearing a lot of hats there. And then I reached a point in my career where I wanted to focus a lot more on professional development, expanding my skill set to not just Permian Basin if I ever want to focus on other basins or other assets in the future. And around that time, Chevron had an opportunity available in Midland to work in a centralized role, and it was a production engineering role. So that's how I learned about the opportunity, or that's how I got my foot in the door with Chevron, working as a production engineer, and I've been working as a production engineer there since. So I've been enjoying that. I've been focused on Midland and Delaware basins and providing solutions for area engineers there and doing a lot of technical studies focused on production engineering.
Interesting. Interesting. And a few things I can get out of this. So you had some setbacks, but you always came out of those setbacks, and you came much stronger than before. So that's a good learning for all of us. But also you talk about the core, like you always stick with the core of this energy business, and how difficult it was to make that decision, especially when you were starting up your petrochemical journey.
Well, I always wanted to do technical projects. I led with my passion, I will say. And I have this belief that if you really want something, somehow you're going to get it. If you really prioritize something and if you really want it, you will get it. You may not always get it directly because the career path is never linear, but you will eventually get what you want.
I agree. Like someone was telling me, you should know where you want to reach. Like it can be easier path, or it can be a little bit zigzag during this journey, but ultimately you reach where you want to reach. That's really great. But I'm also a little bit curious how you decided to go on petrochemical side, because most of the time when you think about building our career, like people go towards maybe electrical or the conventional thing, maybe computers or something else. But very rarely they think about petrochemical as a career where you can grow as a person, and also you can grow as a professional.
Absolutely. When I went to that all girls engineering camp and I understood like low cost energy was helping people and I really enjoyed that. But what also attracted me to petroleum engineering was how specific it was to the industry or how specific it was to what career path you'll take. And I felt everything was planned out for me. If I pursued chemical engineering, electrical engineering,
Yes.
mechanical engineering, those are general engineering majors. And then every internship, I would probably be experimenting with a different industry.
Good to know. So it's other way around. People always look for general, so they can fit anywhere. If they don't have a success at one place, they can be is a successful at another place. But I will say like it takes courage to decide core academic journey, and I'm glad like you have made it. I want to understand. We talked about your personal side. You're a YouTuber, you're a podcaster, you're also very active in social media. How it's all helping you in this professional journey?
That's a very interesting story. I got the advice before I started my major UT to network, be involved with SPE, Society of Petroleum Engineers, and build relationships with people. I kept that in mind from my first mentor. My first mentor gave me that. And I made that a priority of networking, volunteering for Society of Petroleum Engineers. So, how I got into YouTubing, I didn't know that I was building my brand. I had someone give me the comment 2 years into my career. Do you know that you're building a brand? Or your brand is really awesome. And I didn't really understand that feedback at the time. But as I got to thinking about it, I realized that I was doing things that helped me stand out, but I wasn't doing that intentionally.
Yes,
I
yes.
was really doing this for job security.
But I agree that helps you to build your personal brand. And
Exactly.
yes.
Well, YouTube started with I always wanted a YouTube channel, but I didn't know what subjects to talk about. I realized that as an industry, we're really bad at advocating for our own industry. We tend to be on the defense when people start criticizing oil and gas in terms of social responsibility and environment. So I thought, why don't I become a voice or a positive voice for the industry? And I started the YouTube channel that way by promoting technical content. So if anyone is curious to know about what people in oil and gas do, there's technical content, but there's also professional development content for those that are in the oil and gas industry. I thought of myself as if I could go back to university and if I could find content of somebody's directly speaking to me on how to help me survive this industry, who would that person look like? So I always imaged myself as I want to be that person to help those university students get their jobs, get their internships. I also want to be able to voice that I'm an advocate of the industry. Not everyone is bad in the industry. In fact, this industry isn't bad at all.
But there's some negativity perception might have created around this industry. And actually, to our listeners, actually, that's what we are doing now. We are trying to break some of the biases that might have formed around this industry. This industry is very big, and if you're looking to make your career, or if you want to enter this industry, there are lots of opportunities, and there are lots of success stories. We have like Yogashri, like who have made it big. Interesting topic.
Definitely. Another reason why I started the YouTube channel was a personal story. I was interested in a position or in a volunteering position for an international organization, and I got some feedback. So this goes back to trying to spin something negative to something positive. I got some feedback saying that I'm the queen of self promotion. And
Okay.
it was a lot of laughable feedback, and I realized that, okay, let me play on this. Let me, if I'm really good at self-promotion, let me play
Yeah,
on this a little bit
just
more.
build on it.
So
Yeah.
just build
Yeah.
on it.
Just
So
build
that's
on it.
how,
Just build on
so
it.
there were many reasons of starting the YouTube channel. So my first video for the YouTube channel was my wedding video.
I have
And
seen that one.
yeah, the wedding video. And the wedding video is me getting married to my husband at a pump jack in
Yeah, I
Midland.
have seen that one. Yes. It is interesting. When I saw this, I was like, oh no, I never thought that this can be done, but it was very
I didn't
interesting.
think it'd be done either. But I asked permission for the company that I was working for at the time, and the sole proprietor said, sure. And then they
Yeah.
cleaned up the location and repainted valves and everything, and they made it really picture worthy.
But it tells me one more thing, like thinking out of the box. So one thing like, that came to you, and you said, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Let's see how I can build on it, and you have built something on it. So it's very interesting. And also when you talk about self promotion, I think sometimes is needed because most of the time we did discount ourselves. Sometimes we don't have that confidence, but if somebody has that confidence to build their own podcast channel or YouTube channel, I think that takes courage and lots of efforts, because I'm doing myself, and I could see it takes lots of efforts and time to do all these things. So it's not easy. So whoever is successful in the social media, I think they have put a lot of time and the money and the courage to do all these things. So it's really great how it all worked out for you. One more thing, actually, I'm also interested because you have almost a decade now serving this industry. What changes you have seen today as compared to when you started your career?
I think the most obvious one, the big elephant in the room, has been COVID. And prior to COVID, when I started working in the industry, there was there was a perception or a requirement that you have to be present in the office, or you can't have your work done remotely.
Yes,
You have to be there. And to some extent that's true. Like being there in the field, being there in the office in person. I mean, nothing exchange, there's no replacement for that. But what I
agreed.
did learn is that after COVID, there are, as far as interactions and professional development goes, people want to there there's more people that want to stay behind the screen and still and want to communicate, because that, in a way, that is their new comfort zone.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that want to that that still want to do those the virtual interactions, and it has its place. There, it is possible to do remote work, but it I've seen from a recruiting standpoint, there's students that have had different kinds of growth because their first year in college they spent it remote,
Yes,
or there's some social skills that are very different from those that have experienced COVID during their crucial years, their formative years, whether if it's their final year of high school, first year of college, or even the first half of college. So that does affect professional growth, I think, because the expectations are going to be different from those that have gone through COVID during their first couple years. So
I
that's
agree.
where I've seen professional development and professional growth has been.
Makes sense. And anything on the technology side that might bring more opportunities for someone who's trying to make it big in this industry?
Absolutely. So I'm actually teaching a course in petroleum data analytics, and there's been a lot more interest on the data analytics, data science side, and then the usage of AI. So there's this fear of chat GPT, for instance, taking over people's jobs, when in reality, it's supposed to enhance people's jobs. Well, not necessarily chat GPT, but AI. But on the technology side, there's been a concern of machine learning
Yes.
replacing the physics and AI replacing people's jobs, when it's clearly enhanced people's jobs. And machine learning has prompted to find the answers of, like, to see if something physically makes sense.
No, makes sense. I think I will add to my experience. I started my career as an automation engineer almost 2 decades ago. And before me, like there was always a fear automation will take away all the jobs. But it did other way around. Like our productivity has increased and it has opened new avenues. So I see AI or machine learning doing the same thing. It might not take away our job, but it might open more opportunities. But it's also how you see the world. Yeah, you can see the world black or you can see the world white.
Exactly.
So it all depends how you see. But you made a really good point. So this is for our listeners. If you're trying to make it big, it doesn't matter which part of industry you are, but there is always a scope to make it big in this industry. If you're in data science, there's still possibility. Or if you are like engineers serving other industries, again, this industry is very adaptive. So there, you always have a chance to come and join this industry and make it big from there. Very interesting, Yogeshwari. Another thing, it's very cliche question, but let me ask you. You talked about your journey, but if you were given a chance to relive your journey, what changes would you make?
If I was given a chance to relive my journey, I think the first change that I would make is when I had my first setback, not to be so worried. Because I was very worried. Let's face it was my first year in the industry, and I treated my job like it was breathing. Once my job was cut, I felt like I was out of air. And I don't ever want to see life that way again, because there is more to life than your job. I mean,
Yes.
one of my values is work-life balance, and the way that I have achieved that work-life balance was learning what workload I can take and learning what I want to say no to. So setting boundaries is really important. Sometimes you get feedback that you're stretching yourself too thin or you're not committing as much as you can. And that's also a sign that you may want to focus more on work-life balance. I now do something where I try to schedule something after work to where I have to be away from work. So for those, if it's kids activities, you can do that. For me, it's the CrossFit coaching or it's teaching at University of Texas of the Permian Basin. So I do that. So if I could do that, not be so worried and not focus, not have an imbalance of my work-life balance. And then I would also say setting my boundaries a lot sooner, setting my boundaries and learning how to say no.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And so, like, few things to learn here. Like, you take setbacks as opportunity. You should not go in the victim mode. Like most of the people like us, they might go into victim mode. But as you have seen, like all the setbacks you took as opportunity for the next step. And also you one thing you mentioned about disconnect from the work. Actually, I think that is also very important. Sometimes we say, "Oh, I have left my office," but our brain is always there. You are physically disconnected, but not mentally. But the one thing I have also learned when you start to grow in your career or also maybe in the business, it's good to be disconnected from the work, not just physically, but mentally as well, because that will help you to be fresh, to come with new ideas. Otherwise, we have seen many people, they burn out after a while. So it's really great to get disconnected. A very interesting discussion, but we are coming at the end of our discussion. But one thing I would like to know: you have seen this industry as a student, then as an academic, and also the person who is part of this industry as a core, like as part of the production team. If somebody is looking to make a career or also want to establish a business serving this industry, what would be your one advice?
That's a great question. The piece of advice that I would give is learn to adapt to change and learn to adapt and get different people's feed and get a diversity of feedback. Adapting to change, to give some context, conventionals, for example, unconventional production is about 15 years old as far as like the spike in shale revolution. Right now, at the time of this recording, is 15 years old. But there were times where people didn't think producing from shales was a possibility,
Yes.
but that has become a possibility. There are people who thought EOR was only meant for conventional reservoirs, but now there's EOR being implemented in unconventional reservoirs. So if you want to develop a business, make sure that business is adaptable.
Makes sense.
And then I would say that if you want to start a business in the oil and gas industry, getting a diversity of feedback rather than getting the feedback that you want to hear.
It's always tough.
It's
It's
tough, but
always tough.
but your business is as strong as how you built it or how you foolproofed it.
Yes, yes. I agree. And one thing you talk about the feedback. Feedback is important, but also you have to accept that feedback. You have to accept all kind of feedbacks. It could be positive, it could be negative, but you can always learn from it. And so I 100% agree what you just said, Yogeshwari. So with that, I really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed all the conversation. And also good to see how you're spreading all the positivity about this industry. I think people like you will encourage more and more people joining this industry. And so that's really, really great. Thank you so much for your time. Anything else to say, Yogeshwari, to our listeners?
I didn't have anything else to say, but I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to talk about my journey and then talk about very interesting topics and trends in the industry.
No, thank you. So with that, we have to stop here. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I will join you next week. Thank you.